There is a moment in the Bible where two people dropped dead instantly, right in front of the entire church. Not from a heart attack, not from poison. They died from telling a lie. One single lie they thought nobody would discover. This is the story of Ananias and Sapphira, and what happened that day changed forever how Christians understand holiness, truth, and the fear of the Lord. Before we go deeper, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you think about God's patience. Comment below, do you think God's judgment was too harsh or absolutely necessary? I want your honest thoughts. Stay until the very end because I'm revealing the deepest lesson most people completely miss.
Jerusalem was different. Something supernatural hung over that city. In the houses, in the streets, in every believer's heart, there was a presence nobody could ignore. The early church was exploding with growth. Miracles happened daily. Blind people seeing, crippled people walking, lives completely transformed. But along with all that power, there was something else, a sacred silence, a reverent fear that made people think twice before they spoke or acted. This was the fear of God, that profound respect when you realize you're standing before something infinitely greater than yourself. The apostles taught with supernatural authority. The Holy Spirit moved with tangible power. Everyone knew God was present, not as a religious idea, but as a living, active, undeniable reality. In this atmosphere where everything seemed perfect, something dark was about to be exposed. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can sit in church every week, sing worship songs, raise your hands, and still have a completely divided heart. The story of Ananias and Sapphira doesn't start with murder or some violent crime. It starts with something much more common, a quiet thought, a private conversation, a decision made behind closed doors, far from human eyes. But there was one problem. Nothing is hidden from the eyes of God.
Picture a community where nobody had needs, where wealthy believers voluntarily sold properties and laid money at the apostles' feet. No competition, no envy. This was the early church, a place where truth and sincerity were everything. Barnabas, for example, sold an entire field and brought every coin to the apostles. No strings attached, just pure surrender flowing from a heart transformed by the gospel. In this setting of intense light, where holiness shone so brightly, it seems impossible darkness could form. But that's exactly where danger lives. Because the brighter the light around you, the more tempting it becomes to just appear bright without actually being bright. Ananias and Sapphira looked around. They saw the praise people like Barnabas received, and something grew inside them. Not the desire to serve God, but the desire to be seen serving God. They wanted glory without sacrifice, reputation without surrender. Here's what people don't realize. Ananias and Sapphira weren't evil outwardly. They were regular church members. They attended meetings. They contributed. They prayed. Everything looked fine on the surface. But internally, a battle raged. A struggle between who they wanted people to think they were and who they really were. They owned property. They decided to sell it. Nothing wrong so far. Nobody forced them. But then came the fatal decision. They agreed together to keep part of the money while presenting the rest as if it were the total amount. The problem wasn't keeping some money. The problem was lying about it, pretending to give everything when they hadn't, using generosity as a mask to hide a divided heart. Right there, they crossed a deadly line, the line between human weakness and deliberate sin. If this is hitting home, smash that like button. Have you ever pretended to be more spiritual than you really were? Comment below.
Ananias and Sapphira didn't stumble into temptation. They planned it. They discussed it privately. They agreed on their lie. And they believed nobody would know.
There was a conversation, just the two of them, no witnesses. Let's sell the property, but we don't have to give it all. Let's keep some back. Nobody needs to know the real value. And the other agreed. But God wasn't asking for their money. God was asking for their truth. The deal was done. Ananias walked confidently to the apostles. He didn't know he was about to stand not before men, but before God himself. He didn't know the Holy Spirit had revealed everything to Peter. He didn't know this would be the last act of his life. Ananias entered. People were gathered. He held out the money. He probably rehearsed a humble speech. I'm bringing the offering from our property sale. May this be used for God's work. Beautiful words, an appearance of holiness, but behind those words was a deliberate lie. Peter was there, and the Holy Spirit revealed the truth to him instantly. Peter didn't need investigation. He already knew. Ananias, why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit and keep back part of the price? While it remained unsold, didn't it belong to you? After it was sold, wasn't it at your disposal? You have not lied to men, but to God. Imagine the silence. Imagine Ananias's face going pale, his heart pounding. Everything was exposed. You have not lied to men, but to God. What happened next was instantaneous. No warning, no second chance. As soon as Peter finished speaking, Ananias fell. And when he fell, he was already dead. No heart attack, no illness, just the direct judgment of God on a life that chose lies over truth. The silence was deafening. People stared in shock. When they realized he wasn't breathing, fear fell on everyone like a crushing wave. Young men wrapped his body. They carried him out and buried him. It happened so fast, but the impact would be forever burned into their memories. God was not playing games. Holiness was not a suggestion. Truth was not optional.
About 3 hours passed. Sapphira still didn't know what happened. She walked into that same room where her husband had just died. She walked in confidently, probably expecting praise. Peter saw her enter. He asked a direct question, a question that was both a test and an opportunity. Tell me, did you sell the land for this amount? It was her last chance. She could have said, no, we sold it for more. We kept part back. It would have been humiliating, but it would have been true. Instead, Sapphira chose the path of lies. Yes, for that amount. 3 words that sealed her fate. She didn't just lie, she insisted on the lie. Peter's response must have frozen her blood. Why have you conspired to test the Spirit of the Lord? Look, the feet of those who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out too. Imagine the horror, discovering her husband was dead, discovering the lie was exposed, discovering the same judgment was about to fall. There was no time for tears, no time for regret. Just like Ananias, Sapphira fell at Peter's feet and died. The same judgment, 2 bodies in one day, husband and wife, united in life, united in lies, now united in death. The young men came back in. They found Sapphira lifeless. They carried her out and buried her beside her husband. The fear of God wasn't a poetic expression. It was real, tangible. Everyone who witnessed it was gripped with reverent awe. But here's what's powerful. This episode didn't destroy the church, it purified it. When you understand God sees everything and takes integrity seriously, you start living differently. You stop playing games with sin. You stop thinking you can live a double life. The news spread throughout Jerusalem. Did you hear what happened? They lied about an offering and dropped dead. And what could have driven people away had the opposite effect. Great fear came upon the church, but it was fear that purified them, fear that made them examine their own hearts.
The church grew even more, but now with deeper understanding. Following Christ wasn't just social activity, it was a call to absolute holiness. Let me leave you with 3 truths. First truth, God sees the heart, not just outward actions. He wasn't fooled by the offering. He saw the lie, the hypocrisy, the desire for glory. You cannot fool God with religious performances. Second truth, God values truth above all else. They had every right to keep the money. The sin was lying about it. God prefers you honest about your limitations than hypocritical about your virtues. Third truth, God takes the holiness of His church seriously. The judgment was severe because the church was just beginning. If hypocrisy were allowed from the start, it would spread like cancer. Here's my final question. Comment below honestly. Are there areas in your life where you're living a lie, where you're pretending to be something you're not? If this impacted you, subscribe to Learn Bible Characters, hit that like button, and share this. The Bible is full of powerful lessons, and we're uncovering them together. Remember, God sees everything. He's calling you to live in complete honesty, not to punish you, but to purify you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video where we dive into another incredible Bible character.